Yeah, perfect. That's exactly right. It was, aviation, very young. That was a passion. And I read this book. I cannot remember when it was. I think it was called Crush It. And it has nothing to do with aviation, but it has everything to do about finding your passion, defining what it is. Not everybody gets to it's like, you know, gets to do their passion, for work, right? But you can use it as a means to do the things that you like to do. My passion changed. My passion changed from all I wanted to do was just be in the clouds and fly and fly and fly to to I wanted to know why things work and how can I be a part of it. You know what I mean? And flying allowed me to do that because I was actually going places. But then again, I placed myself in those positions to do so. I mean, I asked to leave the cockpit, so to speak, go back to school to retool my education so I can become a contracting and acquisition specialist from the Naval Postgraduate School, right? That led me to doing foreign military assistance in the military, right? Which gave me a whole different experience in what I was doing. And then that experience and that story and that cultivation led me to Harvard and to economics, the political economy of trade and development, because I was understanding the end results of development from the classes and stuff that I took. And so now that takes me to what I do is, where I'm consulting on technology transfer and development in defense technologies. But, what you had mentioned in our further on questions, I'm also the managing director of Veterans Cannabis because I'm a veteran of Veterans Cannabis Project. And then in my off time, so to speak, I fly for Atlas Air. So I fly Amazon Prime. I'm on a mission or a pattern right now. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, getting ready to fly to Austin, Texas, moving Amazon Prime products. So it's fascinating, but all of this is done where I have followed my interest, but I did everything that I possibly could to make it happen. Even if I didn't know anybody in that particular space.
Oh, so I guess kind of like the best of both worlds, where you kind of get to have that aspect of, passion and, still doing the things you want to do while being able to sustain yourself. I think it's really quite
Right.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
No, no, no. It's great. Sometimes it's late nights, but I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah,
So yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's really good.
Mhm.
So you served for over 20 years as a military naval aviator and commanding
Yeah.
officer in the United States Navy. How did your military experience shape your worldview and approach to your post-service career interests?
When you get an opportunity to serve your country or something bigger than you, it's fantastic. It's a great opportunity and you can learn. I don't think that there's very few organizations that allow you to start your career in one aspect and then you can do 180 degrees and end your career in a totally different activity with so many experiences in between, right? Big organizations allow you to do that. I think at the time when I was in, there was like 430,000 individuals in the military. And so, and I believe that I think there was like maybe, it's probably a bad number. I won't quote that one, but it was about 430,000 is what I believe. Um, for me, there's very little tolerance, especially in the profession that I did, for deviations of what is standard, right? And so for me, because when you're flying in tight places, one of the things that they do is just repetition, repetition. When I was a flight instructor, it was about for the student naval aviators, it was about repetitions. There's certain things that you will always do every time you go out and fly. And that makes you tactically proficient. And so when you're young, you learn that discipline one is a lot of studying involved. Two, it's very difficult to do it by yourself. So you have to interact, you have to socialize, and you have to study with individuals. And so I did that. I was part of the Black Aviators Network in Pensacola, where we would get together on the weekends and exchange stories. We call it gouge, where you get a heads up on an instructor or a type of profile the flight is going to do. And so you kind of develop, an academic discipline was something that I had, but that just kind of put it in overdrive. There's an education in training, right? They're very different things. And training is about you're learning a specific task or specific steps to it. And so flight school is really about training, where education is where you can read and develop your own opinions and create to a greater body of knowledge of it. There's no room for that in training, right? So we call like sometimes you just have to shut up and color despite you don't get it. It's like just hit the I believe button and you do that. And guess what? The plane will be where it's supposed to be on time if you just believe and follow the steps. And so that's what it was. And so it shaped me that way. The other way that the military shaped me is that you get a lot of responsibility at a young age. I mean, my first division when I got out of flight school, I think had 100 sailors. So I had like maybe 110, 100 sailors underneath me, not underneath me, that I was working with, that I was in charge of. And so getting that responsibility, people have 1,001 motivations on what makes them want to come to work and do an excellent job, right? And they're doing very critical tasks. And so part of that leadership is one, you have to get to know the folks that you are working with. So you kind of find out what that takes, and you got to kind of motivate them and kind of form those teams where the results happen that you want to have happen. And then at the same time, you want to motivate them to be able to stay. But I cannot reward a person with a raise. Raises come with them, standard, you get promoted in the military based on time and grade and cycles and seniorities and all these things. And so if somebody does a great job and I want them to repeat that particular activity, a lot of times, I can't promote somebody out of cycle, right? So I have to keep them motivated, whether if it's just like a day off or some type of certificate, which at the end of the day means nothing to their lives. But if you're able to want people to want to work for you or want to work with you, for me, that was a better leadership tool for me. And it was just more fun, right? I didn't lead out of fear or some type of positional. My rank gave me that positional hierarchy, right? But it was up to me to build trust where they would trust that if there were problems, that I would listen to their problems, trust that I'm not taking advantage of the hard work that they are doing for a particular outcome, and just trust that I have their interest in mind, and then people will want to work for you. And so that's what I did. And I did a lot of listening, not a lot of talking, talk when I needed to talk. Right. And I think that it served me well. You know what I mean? Very, very, very few times in the military do you get that 360-degree look. A lot of times I was rating people, when it came to evaluation time of the year. But very rarely does that rate come back around and they tell you how you are. But you kind of get a sense on body language and what people say and some feedback that you get. But there's no, at the time when I was in, there was no formal process for that 360-degree loop back where you're being graded as a leader. Because even though my bosses may see me as an effective leader because I'm getting results, they have no idea if I'm killing the people below me in order to achieve that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes you see really terrible people get promoted, but they're murdering the people underneath them to get the results. But the only thing their bosses see is a fantastic. Steve's a great guy. He gets it done. You know what I mean? And I wasn't trying to leave a trail of tears behind me, so to speak. So I think people skills is what I learned in the military. Taking complex subjects and issues and being able to whittle it down and be able to explain something in a sentence or two, I think is critically important, and it helps you understand exactly what you're talking about, and people trust that what you're talking about is actually the truth, without buzzwords. And I think the other thing is just like when it comes down to getting your hands dirty and just doing the work, you just can't get around in the military, especially in your first 10 years. That's what you do. They call it you're an action officer, and that's what you do.
Mhm.
And so, yeah. So even planning the Christmas party.
And in terms of acquiring some of these skills, like, responsibility, getting the most out of people, in managing certain high pressure situations, would you recommend the military for some people? Do you think that that is a, really good step in some people's lives?
Yeah, I would. I would never. So the answer is yes, I would. For me, I always tell people, if you're doing a military, it's option. And thing is, the military has been all volunteer since 1973, I believe. And so when you look at it, a lot of people have the propensity to want to serve, right? With volunteer hours, they want to serve their country. Maybe not necessarily military capacity, but serve their community. Let me put it that way. Let me not make it so macro, but micro. That people want to serve their community. Sometimes people don't view the military as a good place, especially among African Americans, for a lot of reasons. But for me, when I tell somebody if they're considering the military as a career, I was like, look to what you want to do, right? Very rarely, I think you get disappointed when you kind of just throw your cards up in the air and they just kind of fall. And people can get very lucky that way. But every type of career field that you can do, or just about every type of career field that you can do while not in the military, you can do while you're in. And a lot of times it relieves a lot of that financial burden on creating those careers, whether if it's a specialty career like being a doctor. It's a very good deal, or a nurse. Those are good deals where the military will pay your student loans. But you're in the military, but you wanted to be a nurse, you're a nurse. You want to be a lawyer, you're a lawyer. You know what I mean? And then some of the deals are for how many years they paid for law school, that's how many years that you owe. And you're a lawyer and you can start your practice. And so for me, I wanted to be a pilot. I wasn't on the ground doing things I didn't want to do. I was flying, right? There's a risk though, right there, because you are trading your skills and your knowledge for money and opportunity, right? So you have to perform, you have to do well, and it can be a fantastic opportunity for those that have a clear path on what they want to do, but maybe not necessarily the means on how to do it, right? One of the things that the military was an instant ticket to middle class, like it was for my father, right? He grew up as a poor farmer, but joining the Marine Corps got him the GI Bill, which led him to go to college at Prairie View A&M, which led to his degree in middle class, right? Where I did not have to, I was that step further. And the military has done that for a lot of people. So much so that 75% of the people who join the military today come from families that their parents were in the military, because they see it as an option, as like, hey, this is a pretty good life. We got to go move places and do things. And I think that speaks volume for how it can be. Now, for any organization that is as large as it is, you have bad stories and not good fits. And that happens everywhere. But I think if you want, there are a lot, I saw a lot of people do a lot of cool stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that this is the only way to do it, but I think if somebody is looking for a leadership, opportunity, not only work-wise, but education-wise, I think somebody could have a really good go at it in the military. I did. I took it year by year, but for me, I stayed in as long as the good deals outweighed the bad deals. And then it was time to go. I just really knew that there wasn't anything that I wanted to do in the Navy And that's when I knew it was time to retire. There wasn't a job that I could think of that I wanted to do. I did everything that I wanted to do, pretty
Mm,
much. And it was just time to try something different. And so that's when I retired.
got it. And then you also study
Mhm.
concentrations like global development, government innovation, and macroeconomics at the Harvard Kennedy School. So
Yep.
now how have these areas of academic focus informed your approach to policy issues and leadership decisions as the leader of a nonprofit today?
Yeah, I mean, policy is a very tough thing. And I think when I was at the Kennedy School, it helped develop a sensitivity to how difficult it is to do foreign policy. There's such a historical reference on why everything is laid out the way it is today. And a lot of countries and different culture view history very different than Americans do. I think Americans tend to have a very short lifespan of historical events, and then they move on. Right? We're a very young country, and we behave as such. Right? Harvard allowed me to one meet the individuals that are crafting policies today, but to understand the sensitivity and how difficult it is to in order to be effective. And every policies probably will have a negative consequences or unintended consequences to that. And so you have to be sensitive if you make mistakes, because mistakes do happen, then you have to be able to own them. I don't think I learned that at Harvard. I think I learned that in the military, where if you make a mistake, you own it, right? And you apologize and then you move on. But I think understanding the sensitivity of meeting folks, with the current situation. Like I was in class with Israelis and Palestinians in the same classroom, talking about very difficult issues, and you know, you develop like, wow, this is a really tough issue, and so that kind of shaped how it worked, and then certain classes that I took and experiences that I had with commercial trade, because that was something I never did in the military. I mean, I would trade on an industrial base based on a program called foreign military sales, right? Foreign military sales is parallel to commercial trade. The goal is the same, right? But it is not the same. You know what I mean? And so being able to learn that. When I retired, I was able to kind of take those knowledge, and the biggest thing that you could ever do really besides education and learning is that's developing your network. So a lot of times my Harvard adventure was about developing that network. And so it allowed me to explore avenues in consulting and technology transfer and development in ways that I wouldn't be able to if I hadn't gone certain places and met certain individuals that said, hey, this is what I think I'm interested in. I think I have this idea, is usually how it starts. And one, I'm never wedded to an idea. First of all, it's like, you know, if you think you get an idea and you've got it all figured out, well, your idea starts off at you have your